James Thompson says careless drivers are endangering the lives of St Therese primary pupils, blatantly ignoring not only the 40km/h school zones, but also the 50k limit in surrounding streets.
And they're flying through at 60 and 70 kilometres an hour, especially after 5 o'clock because everyone wants to get home, and it's just a free-for-all.
Up to 100 children remain on school grounds until 6 p.m. in after-school care. Mr Thompson says time and again he sees the end results of motorists speeding.
The intersection right behind me, we see about 4 T-bone accidents a year, which is quite scary, with some serious injuries.
He fears it will only be a matter of time before a child is hit. Today, NBN News saw several cars drive straight through a school crossing that children were waiting to use. Mr Thompson says motorists need to curb their behaviour before it's too late.
Just to be courteous, and when people are trying to cross the road, to actually stop and let them cross the road.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
It's been an arduous journey for Newcastle's inner-city bypass. The fourth stage, a $133 million 1.8-kilometre dual carriageway between Sandgate and Shortland, is scheduled to be completed next year. But the fifth stage, linking Jesmond with Rankin Park, remains a dead end.
It's been on hold since 2003, since the initial Charlestown bypass was built, and it really is the classic missing link.
Labor member for Wallsend, Sonia Hornery, is looking squarely at the Liberal government, questioning whether there'll be any money allocated in the next state budget to fund Stage 5.
At this stage, what we're looking at doing is putting in a submission to Infrastructure New South Wales,
which is a lengthy process.
The application, you're normally looking at about a 12-month process. I spoke to the RTA about this issue on Tuesday, and even if it was approved tomorrow, we'd be looking at about 2 years before a sod was turned.
The RTA today told NBN News it's completed a route study for the missing link. So the big question for motorists is where to now for the Charlestown bypass. By the looks of things, it seems to have reached the end of the road for now. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It's boom and gloom for the Hunter economy. The Hunter Valley Research Foundation's June quarter indicators point to continued good times in the coal industry, but tougher times in retail and housing.
We've still got a very strong economy. The gloom comes through where if you're in particular sectors of the economy, being particularly in retail and housing, like we talked about before, retail in particular, then you've got a few fundamental drivers working against you. And one of those is higher interest rates.
And those rates are biting hard. Non-residential building approvals are down 30% on the same time last year. New passenger vehicle registrations are also down, as is consumer confidence. Key speaker at the Research Foundation's quarterly breakfast, St George Bank Chief Economist Bessa Dedder, believes there'll be little movement on rates in the immediate future.
I think that the RBA will sit on its hands. There are a number of factors that the RBA has to balance at the moment.
Meanwhile, the Newcastle Port Corporation has recorded an 11% jump in trade in and out of the harbour. Coal made up more than 90% of exports, valued at $13.5 billion. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
But I guess we're living in a very fast society, and I guess with technology as well and changes in technology, people are finding it hard to keep up.
So we thought we'd just don the pyjamas, the slippers, and just kick back and have a relaxing and a fun day.
The miserable weather failed to dampen Ryan Stig's spirits, but the loss of two key forwards did put a dampener on the Knights' departure.
Yeah, we have had a couple of changes since yesterday. Nav Costigan with the knee and Dan Toller with an Achilles are out.
Marvin Caruana comes onto an extended bench, while Zane Tedovano may also get the chance to make his NRL debut.
Losing players of that quality is always tough, but those two particular players, Marv and Zane, have been really knocking on the door. They've been 18th man for me a couple of times in the last 2 months, and really desperate to get out and play and show what they got.
Having missed the clash with Manly because of a hamstring injury, captain Kurt Gidley returns at fullback.
I'm confident he'll take his place and play 80 minutes, and Junior Seau come through his little neck issue well and did some full contact today, and he'll take his place as well.
Wes Nagama joined his teammates this afternoon, but he definitely won't face the Sharks. He'll meet with a second surgeon early next week after being told his torn triceps need a season-ending operation. Still on league, and round 14 of the real NRL has been called off, with catch-up games to be played on Tuesday, August 2nd. It's a similar story in the Women's Premier League football, while Valentine Phoenix versus Hamilton has also been postponed in the NBN State League. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. They started the season on fire, but a lack of consistent game time has seen the Newcastle North Stars slide back into second. A win over Adelaide on Saturday would be the perfect way to get their campaign back on the front foot.
They beat us in a grand final in a shootout here a few years back. They knocked us out of the finals last year. So it's one of those things. Anything can happen on the day, and they're one of the teams that can give us a good run.
But it's the league-leading Ice that posed the greatest threat to the North Stars' title aspirations. A 4-3 win in Newcastle last weekend gave the Melbourne side the edge, but the North Stars coach says it's no time to panic.
So there's really only 1 point separating us throughout the season, and if we can win in Melbourne this weekend, we'll actually win that 4-game series against them. So it's very close.
Overseas, and Curry's Chad Reed is back on his bike in Washington this weekend, following a crash that made highlight reels around the world. Reed admits he's still bumped and bruised, but he'll ride through the pain in an effort to maintain his lead in the AMA Motocross Series. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It was a truly devastating blaze. 3 generations of the one family were inside this 160-year-old building when it went up in flames.
Saw flames come out of the house. It was terrible. It was devastating, really. The family, I was just there for the family. They were just bawling their eyes out.
The blaze took hold of 2 homes and the Manyi Chinese Cafe at around 4:30 yesterday afternoon. 6 crews battled the inferno for more than 4 hours before bringing it under control. This morning, the ruins were still so hot, firefighters were called back at 6:30 to extinguish several new spot fires. Details have emerged about the fire's cause.
The kids lit a fire in the toy room, and they came out and they said there's a fire, and Crystal ran in with buckets of water trying to put it out, and she couldn't put it out, so she just grabbed the kids and got out of there.
A desperate rescue was also launched to save a grandmother.
And there was a nana in there who was 94, and she was in like a chair and she couldn't move, so they had to like break down the back door and like get her out and stuff and carry her out. And she's in hospital now.
The fire has cost the family everything it owns, but it's got the support of the West Wallsend community.
They're still devastated, but yeah, they're going good. They're trying to be strong about it all, and there's so many donations and stuff going in. We've already donated so many clothes to them, and we went shopping and stuff last night for them.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
They're a piece of history that, because railways opened up New South Wales, and we just like to preserve them and keep them all trim and taut and terrific.
Most of the field was finding it tough to stay under par at the Shaughnessy Club in Vancouver. At least John Daly was doing his bit to brighten everyone's day. Stuart Appleby shot a second round 71, but combined with his 76 on day one, it wasn't enough to make the cut. Golfing legend Ernie Els also struggled to move up the leaderboard, and you just knew it wasn't going to be his day when his tee shot came to rest behind his playing partners. Meanwhile, on the nationwide tour, Nick Flanagan sits 10 shots off the pace following the second round, while fellow Lake Macquarie golfer James Nitties missed the cut. His putter let him down on several occasions, including the par 3 13th, where he finished with a bogey.
For the Catholic Church, this was an important step forward.
The Pope has decreed that John Denham will be laicized.
A rare order from the top to ensure Denham, a priest, will never practice again. 12 months ago, he was sent to jail until at least 2022. The judge condemning even the church, who knew but did nothing about the repeated sexual assault of boys, mainly in Newcastle.
It's done great harm, and we regret that, but the harm to the victims is the centre of the matter, really.
In this case, there were 39 brave enough to speak out.
Victims of abuse no longer have to hide, as there is no shame in this.
It's disgusting, the hierarchy in the Catholic Church.
The Catholic Church has already paid millions of dollars in compensation to some of Denham's victims. Today's announcement, another win for them, but it hasn't pleased everyone.
We've had one priest laicized today, no longer a priest, but there's dozens of them.
Peter Gogarty was sexually assaulted from the age of 9 through to 17. He got justice. The perpetrator, Jim Fletcher, died in jail. But he was buried a priest, and 33 years on, it still haunts his victim.
The church has repeatedly protected these people. I just think that's incredibly offensive for every single victim out there.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
I was a bit concerned after he had the flu and he lost a fair bit of weight, but mate, he showed what a true professional. He's a pro, Matty Hilda, and come out again and showed why he's so valuable to our team.
The Hunters led by as many as 14 in the first half. WNBL player Katie Ray Ebzery made her presence felt with a game-high 26. Hannah Young was doing her bit for the cause, dropping in 13. Down by 7 heading into the fourth, the Mustangs tried to lift at the defensive end. Coach Natalie Porter proved her value on the court, finding plenty of space on her way to 17. But it was Michaela Domkins who proved the difference. She scored 10 of her 24 in the final quarter as the Mustangs held on by 2. In the men's game, Maitland made a bright start thanks to top scorer Mitch Reuter. Not to be outdone, Hunters import Marcus Vanderhyde showcased his skills. Butch Hayes doesn't know the meaning of the word retirement, once again putting his body on the line for the Mustangs. At the other end, Adam Melmoth was making life difficult for the veteran. Newcastle's tenacious defence gave Maitland little freedom as the home side led at every change.
Therese Pearson's son was taken from her before she could even lay eyes on him. 47 years on, she's still angry and in pain.
I was told, oh, you're a good Catholic girl, you can have 6 more kids. But you'll forget about this baby. You don't forget about a baby.
Her son Peter was born in a Catholic-run hospital in Sydney. She was unmarried and 19.
They kept me in hospital until I signed the papers, and finally they gave me drugs to sign the papers.
As many as 150,000 women share Mrs Pearson's heartache, including some who gave birth in Newcastle's Mater Hospital. Today, half a lifetime later, Catholic Health said sorry.
For the role that our organisations played in contributing to that pain and grief, we say sorry.
Admitting some of the adoptions were not only unethical but unlawful, the organisation wants its words backed up by government action as part of a Senate inquiry already underway into adoption practices.
It's time for a national program that can provide access to medical and social work records from the period, that can provide counselling.
Mrs Pearson welcomes the apology but says the damage has been done.
all the money in the world is not going to give me back 47 years of my son. Nobody is going to give me back those years.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
"45 workers standing together, having to fight for what they're owed." It's now been 2 weeks since they were paid.
We didn't sleep last night. Most of the blokes here didn't sleep last night. They were worried, you know.
And this morning, their worst fears were realised. The boss of their Tomago-based construction company confirmed there was no money left.
He walked straight out and just first thing, winding the company up because they're all terminated.
I'm a bit dumbfounded as to what's going on, so...
On its website, AJ Mayer describes its employees as its greatest asset. And with an $8 million contract to help build the fourth coal loader, everyone here thought they had a lot of work.
Yeah, we've been very busy actually, yes.
Where's the money gone?
Oh, I can't explain that.
This name might look familiar. AJ Mayer has split itself into 8 different companies. 2 folded last year. According to this, the creditors report, they owed $3.5 million. And the same men who lost that money, they're working here.
It is a concern and probably something that should be investigated by the authorities.
We asked our own questions of AJ Mayer, which, under pressure, said it would find a way to pay its workers.
Given what's happened with these companies in the past, surely the workers are entitled to be worried that you guys might not be here tomorrow.
We've addressed them, we've spoken to them at great length today.
The workers will return to protest tomorrow as the company looks for someone to get them out of trouble. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
These mines are responsible for student safety at Australia's top universities and TAFEs, an issue making headlines in Newcastle with a spate of attacks on international students.
It was an opportunistic crime from a group of young people who really needed to be called to order. That's all happened, everyone's safe.
The university's chancellor says that's partly because they're now focusing on prevention, a topic being explored at this week's conference, the first of its type in Australia.
It's not the first time that the University of Newcastle has been the innovator, and we just think that it's always better to be prepared.
Director of Threat Management Services at the University of Virginia, Dr. Gene Dysinger, is a keynote speaker. He says what's needed is a united approach to student safety.
The advantage of a multidisciplinary or integrated approach is gathering information from different sources, assessing that through different lenses.
The conference follows the introduction of a number of security measures at the University of Newcastle, including safety whistles and defence classes. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
We're very community focused here at the Mater as well, and so it is really exciting that the community has come on board to fund this position, and that I'm only hoping that they can all see the benefits that this position will have for the patients and for the community generally.
Jo Karaoke White revels in her role as a mum. But early on, she struggled, battling postnatal depression after the births of both Oliver and Freya.
And then one day I just had a basic nervous breakdown and I went, I can't do this anymore. Everything felt very hard, new to me, and someone's taken over my life.
It's a common enough story. Up to 15% of new mums are affected by the condition, which can disrupt family life and that vital bonding time with baby.
We know that mothers who get postnatal depression have a range of problems, but one of those is their ability to be able to interpret the facial cues of their own babies. So this can become quite difficult for them.
Dr. Laughlin's team is investigating the visual responses of mothers to their children. Hooked up to a novel tool which scans her eyes, Jo is shown images and asked to identify the emotion.
we're able to measure her eye movements to see what information she pays attention to or doesn't pay attention to, and how that impacts on looking at her baby as opposed to other babies that she's not familiar with.
It's hoped the research will lead to better treatment programs and even a test to identify parents most at risk of depression. For mums like Jo, it's another step towards awareness.
And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It does happen. Together with family and friends you can, and professionals, there is help, definitely.
Researchers are recruiting for the study, looking for mums with babies aged under 12 months.
They didn't want me there for the next year, so there's nothing really I can do about that, and I'm looking forward to I'm here for another 2 years, so going to go out and put my best foot forward on the weekend.
Constant wet weather in Newcastle saw the Jets move training to Nelson Bay this morning as they prepare to face Bonnyrigg in Sydney. For Jeremy Brockie, the game provides another chance to get used to his new life as a central striker. If all goes according to plan, we'll be seeing more of this in future.
That's one of my goals I've set for myself, is to bang plenty away this year. I think in recent seasons I've had opportunities but haven't really been able to score on a regular basis.
He's certainly done well in the pre-season, and if he can continue in the same manner, there's no reason why he can't have a big year.
Jobe Wheelhouse is expected to return to the lineup on Wednesday after missing the last trial because of illness. Tariq Elrich led the Jets in Wheelhouse's absence, but he's not focused on wearing the captain's armband full-time. Following years of trouble with a groin injury, Elrich is finally pain-free and ready to re-establish himself in the starting 11.
Probably my first proper pre-season that I've had, injury-free. Last one I obviously did my operation, and scar tissue was killing me coming back from it. So, no, it's been, touch wood, it's been awesome.
His former teammate Stuart Mushalik is now officially a Mariner, becoming the second player behind Sasho Petrovski to play for Newcastle, Sydney and the Central Coast.
I'm not going to be liked in any of the F3 derbies, that's for sure, after playing at all three clubs. But yeah, that's the way that the football goes sometimes. So yeah, Central Coast is where I think I'm going to be happiest.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Prior to racing in Washington State, New Vision revealed just how frightening Chad Reed's crash in round 7 really was.
And all I felt was just a big jar of the handlebars, and then the next minute I'm flying through the air, thinking that this is not good.
Heading into round 8, Reed was nursing several injuries, but still held a 6-point lead in the championship. A bad start put that advantage in jeopardy, and he struggled into 7th. The Australian made a better jump in race 2 before a crash involving American Trey Kennard forced a restart. Once again, Reed was in the mix, emerging as one of the frontrunners. As Americans Ryan Villapoto and Ryan Dungey engaged in a battle for the win, Reed settled into a fight with fellow Aussie Brett Metcalf, before eventually finishing 4th, surrendering his series lead in the process.
We'll regroup and come back and try to bridge that gap. Sucks to lose the red plate, but for what it could have been after a crash like that, I think we're sitting not too bad.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
At 9 a.m, the troops rallied, intent on letting AJ Mayer know their position.
We've all got families to feed like everyone else around town, and yeah, we're just waiting for our money basically.
The workers say the construction company hasn't paid them for up to 6 weeks and that AJ Mayer owes them around 6 months' worth of superannuation.
I'm just an apprentice. I just want to go, come to work, turn up to work, do my job, go to TAFE, get paid, and just be like a normal apprentice kind of thing. But it's a bit hard when you're not getting paid and you're struggling.
Yesterday, they were all told they no longer have jobs. Now, several workers also claim the company hasn't paid their child support.
They take the money out of your pay, it's on your pay slip every week, but it doesn't go to the child support agency, so therefore it doesn't get forwarded onto your partner who's supposed to get it. So you don't get access to your kids, or there's blokes here that haven't got access to their kids because they've got no child support.
The former employees and union representatives say they'll protest here at 9 a.m. each day until they're paid.
It is a sad situation, but I think the company needs to talk to their clients and see if they can work something out, because at the end of the day it's the workers that are paying the price.
When asked for a response to today's protest, AJ Mayer's management refused to comment. Madeline McKell, NBN News.
Earlier this year, nurses made a lot of noise in their efforts to secure 1:4 nurse-to-patient ratios. And the then Shadow Health Minister Gillian Skinner appeared to listen, promising to deliver through 1,400 full-time nurses statewide, including 12 in the Hunter.
We've calculated the numbers of beds needed in the Hunter based on the current bed occupancy rate and the current number of beds.
The positions were supposed to be rolled out in 3 stages starting on July 1, but the Nurses Association says staffing levels remain unchanged. It believes it's the result of a lacklustre government recruitment drive and has taken matters into its own hands, producing these ads letting nurses know the jobs are there. And that they'll be working under improved conditions. The Health Minister says the government is currently working to fill the equivalent of 11 full-time positions in the Hunter, with the jobs advertised through recruitment agencies. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
So it's that time of the year?
Indeed it is, Nat. But we're heading down that road again, and it's gearing up to be another busy season.
And what a way to start.
Absolutely, he's a cracking little colt.
Meet the little fella who just couldn't wait to see the world. He's more than likely the first foal of the thoroughbred breeding season, born 2 weeks ahead of schedule at Kilmore Stud at Jerry's Plains. At just 5 hours old, most things looked a little new, but his instincts were certainly right.
An early start, that generally helps in racing?
Oh, it can do, and you know, with the pedigree that this little character's got, he's, you know, he should be a furlong in front to begin with.
His big brother is a champion in Hong Kong. And when it comes to Dad and Costa de Lago, he's a multiple size champion. While he'll need to take some big steps, this colt could be a future stallion and is worth millions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The owner's delighted. I spoke to him this morning. Yeah, he couldn't be more tickled pink.
Around 4,500 foals are expected this season, and from September 1, the stallions will come out to play again. Within a month, these paddocks will be full of broodmares, many of which have travelled from interstate. And most studs in the Hunter Valley are on high alert to ensure the Hendra virus doesn't spread. All mares will be blood tested and have to come with a vet certificate to ensure the Hunter's rich thoroughbred playground isn't jeopardised. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
With Richie Faoso ruled out for at least a week, Jared Mullen's pec injury was the main concern at training this morning, but the signs are more positive the second time around.
It's nowhere near as bad as his initial tear, obviously, but at this point in time, we'll see how he is functionally and see how that repairs, and obviously be guided by Dr. Halpern as well.
Ivan Tuamavave missed today's session through illness, but is expected to return tomorrow. Neville Costigan is one of several players managing an injury this week. He's confident he won't miss more game time following his recovery from knee surgery. Zane Tedovano and Cameron Serraldo received plenty of praise for their performances against the Sharks, and they've earned another spot in the squad this week.
Just getting more minutes on the field and getting a bit of fitness back, and just enjoying being out on the field with the boys and just trying to make the most of the rest of the year.
The clash with the Titans sees the return of Beau Henry for the first time since he was let go by Newcastle. Corey Patterson's performance at Ausgrid Stadium in round 18 has the Knights wary of ex-players.
He's a talented player that obviously we got to the club because we think he had a long-term future in first grade. Again, like Pato, I suppose I hope he doesn't sting us in the bum too much.
He knows 17 blokes from our team, so he's probably going to come back with a point to prove, and we just got to make sure he doesn't have too much of an impact on the game.
You'd think it would take scientists and engineers from NASA to design and build a vehicle capable of carrying a heavy load over rough terrain on Mars. But these boys from St Pius High School constructed their version of a space cargo vehicle with multi-wheel independent suspension in just over an hour.
It's definitely a creative thinking exercise. You definitely have to think a little bit outside the square on how you can adjust things trial and error wise, just to make sure you do it correctly and try and get the right result.
And while the result may not have been perfect, the activity is designed to spark interest in skills that are lacking in Australia.
This virtually gives the children a chance to have a look at in their HSC years of 11 and 12 to take maths, physics, chemistry and science to give our country what we need, more engineers, more scientists.
These girls from Cardiff High School had a balloon-powered car in action, while James and Aidan from Irrawang High were having success with an electric hovercraft. Run by the University of Newcastle and Rotary, the scheme has been operating for 10 years and has now been picked up in the UK and Asia. It's now hoped these homegrown students will be solving the technical problems of the future.
This is the site for a controversial $32 million plan. Developers want to knock down Bymett Lodge and in its place build 107 units and a boarding house. But instead of using Union Street, the entry and exit points would be on Corlett Street, directly next to an infants and preschool and across the road from aged care units.
Which is right next to the school drop-off area, so there's safety concerns there, as well as all the traffic feeding into the residential streets.
And then there's the fact the tallest of the proposed buildings would be 15 metres, 5 metres above Newcastle Council's height limit. It's of particular concern to nearby homeowners, many of whom forked out a lot of money to live in the suburb.
Part of that is they know it's a heritage conservation area. They know that values their houses and limits also what they can do with renovations, and yet we've got a modern, totally out of character complex rising 5 stories.
Despite these concerns and around 300 public submissions against the proposal, Council has recommended the Regional Planning Panel approve the project. A group of residents will speak at the panel hearing tomorrow evening, hoping the project will be deferred and sent back to the drawing board. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
Western aluminium plant owner Garbus Simonian has some seriously big plans. He wants to spend $400 million over the next 4 years expanding the plant into a vast and complex recycling station.
We're proposing to develop the world's first industrial ecology park right here in the Hunter.
He says it would be a one-stop shop where everything from household rubbish to e-waste and toxic and industrial rubbish could be recycled. Already around 70 companies have indicated their interest.
Whatever we do in the area of sustainability, it must be cost effective because people don't want to pay an arm and a leg, for these services.
There are also plans to build Australia's first energy recovery plant where substances like plastic could be burned or melted down to generate electricity.
If we were to process the energy harvested from the rubbish we put in the ground, we could produce at least 10%, possibly up to 15% of our electricity needs from waste.
Mr Simonian is meeting with state and federal government representatives on Friday and plans to lodge a development application for the industrial ecological park in the next few months. Madeline McKell, NBN News.
It's mine safety training for the 21st century. The latest generation of simulation software was today unveiled at Coal Services headquarters.
It's a dangerous industry and the mine safety training and the mine safety rescue operations are absolutely essential.
The 360-degree technology puts workers in emergency situations, giving them a whole new perspective on how to deal with life or death scenarios.
Classrooms, overheads, one-dimensional DVDs and even 8mm films. And we would be given people to train, and literally within the first hour we'd lost them.
The simulator is the most up-to-date of its kind in the world, and this one here is one of only 4 in the state which is currently being used to quite literally save lives. Meanwhile, new training opportunities of another kind became available today at the University of Newcastle. $2.5 million in federal funding has been spent to build 2 new facilities for engineering and architecture students.
We have a shortage, as probably people know, of trained engineers in this country, trained architects and good industrial designers, so they will help us in the quest to try and fill those gaps.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It was hardly light duties this morning. The night's new poster boy, Ryan Stigg, the centre of attention at a careers expo for kids with disabilities.
Yeah, at the moment I'm loving it, so yeah, no, it's good.
But at training, he needed a break. A tough few weeks, clearly affecting his groin.
He'll be back at training on Friday and he shouldn't have any drums.
So no issue there?
No, I don't think so.
Jared Mullen appeared to be moving more freely ahead of the Gold Coast clash, but still, contact was limited.
it's feeling better than what it was on Tuesday. I did a bit of pass on Tuesday and didn't feel all right.
Captain Kurtz, another on board the injured list, he too will need a clearance on Friday. But Rick Stone maintains the Knights won't be fielding an under-strength side when they tackle the last-place Titans.
You've got enough quality players to hurt any team, and we didn't handle ourselves as favourites very well against Townsville.
And the Queenslanders will be experimenting. Zippy utility Luke Capewell has been dropped from the side after signing with Brisbane. Jordan Rankin will take his place.
Luke had the opportunity to stay here and didn't take it. And Jordan, as I said, the most pleasing thing about Jordan is the way he took his demotion. He went back to 20s and lifted a gear.
And when it comes to gears, this rookie is one the Knights better watch. Queensland Cup flyer Dom Peyroux will make his debut on the wing.
Doing a little bit of homework on him and understand he's a quality player, genuine try scorer.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Is running on from the back. Tester Rhythm wanted to duck in, but it's hit the front with about 75 to go. Lotus Flower flashes down the outside out after it, but Tester Rhythm gets up to beat Lotus Flower. 13.50, but Corey was able to get him in with a smother behind the speed. And then Big Bonanza Valdez, followed by Beltane. Never looked a winning chance. Negaturi next, and last in was Battle Ready.
It's a dangerous question and one few would attempt to answer, but Mike Wells is jumping in head first.
Are you insane?
No, definitely not insane. I'm an adventurist.
His sport is freediving. You get one breath, a specialised flipper and a rope as a guide. The aim? Go as far down as you can.
You train up to something as an athlete and it's achievable. But if you just went for it from a beginner level, of course it would be madness.
At the moment, this 39-year-old from Nelson Bay is the only professional freedive teacher in the world. He's been hired by a company to not only promote the sport, but design specialised wetsuits. And the market is getting bigger, especially after this. Wells has just returned from Egypt, where he spent 3 minutes underwater to set a new depth record of 83 metres.
If anyone's competitive, they'll know the feeling of when you actually succeed or win something, and it's a nice feeling, and everyone enjoyed that moment with me.
But he believes the real pleasure is what you see along the way.
I akin it to travelling in space. When I go underwater, it's a complete escape. And I've always been like that with surfing and scuba diving. And freediving is just another vessel to get in the ocean with and explore.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Why haven't they fixed it? That's the question that's got to be asked. They're putting that mine at risk and they're putting those workers' jobs at risk, and the union is wanting answers to all of that.
The safety of our people is our ultimate priority, and basically doing this recovery safely is our prime objective with this.
According to real estate data, in the past 10 years, house prices in Australia have moved from being affordable to severely unaffordable. A new AMP report claims it will be at least another decade before that shifts back. The Hunter Valley Research Foundation's Simon Deming agrees. He says affordability is measured on interest rates, house prices and wages, with the first two factors unlikely to see much change for 10 years.
Wages is the only bit that can slowly improve the affordability context. And we're getting wages growth coming through slowly but surely within the region.
The Foundation's latest figures show house prices in the Hunter remain flat, with the median now $363,000. While the market hasn't stalled, the affordability issue is having a big impact on rentals.
If it's harder for first-home buyers to get into the housing market, then they stay within the rental market, and that doesn't free up space for the new households that are forming.
The region's rental vacancy rate currently sits at a mere 1.5%, and demand has seen the rent for an average three-bedroom home skyrocket 10.9% in the past 12 months.
For three-bedroom houses, that's quite exceptional rental growth, and that's a reflection of the fact also of the strong income growth.
Madeleine McKell, NBN News.
These Bayway residents are seriously worried.
It's just getting beyond us, to survive.
They're among 800 pensioners and other residents facing rent hikes of close to 40%.
That is a far, far excessive rent rise and more than what we can afford.
Residents for 20 years, Doug and Judy Peterson, will be paying $270 a fortnight, an increase of $75. The rise is similar for John Hammond, except he's living off half what his neighbours, the Pearsons, are.
An increase of $32 a week, it's a big slug really, with electricity going up, water going up, everything's going up.
The park's financial controller, Richard Black, says the increases are justified, with rent rises in the past never going above the CPI.
As a consequence that they'd fallen significantly behind what the market would bear.
Most residents have refused an offer of staged increases, instead opting to take park owner Hampshire Property Group to the Tenancy Tribunal.
I'm a little bit surprised that APRA and some of the residents have taken it upon themselves to preempt that process by issuing press releases and going through the media. Possibly they don't think that they've got a high probability of successfully opposing it.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Since Tim Owen and the Liberal Party came into power 4 months ago, progress on the old Newcastle Post Office, Empire Hotel site and Hunter Street Mall revitalisation seems to have ground to a halt. But Mr Owen says that's not the case.
There's a lot of work going on. It's like a duck. It might look serene on the water, but there's a lot of paddling going on underneath.
He says he simply operates differently to past MPs.
I don't want to come out to the Newcastle public, promise a million things and not be able to deliver, so I'm very much of under-promise and over-deliver.
Mr Owen says there should be an announcement on the post office within the next fortnight. As for the Hunter Street Mall,
ongoing negotiations with GPT, myself, the Treasurer, and clearly we'll start involving the Transport Minister as soon as we can in that process.
So Transport Minister, is that something to do with the rail line?
Oh, I wouldn't like to be drawn on that.
And while decisions are pending on those big items, Mr Owen is taking action on another issue. He plans to raise concerns with the Joint Regional Planning Panel tonight over a $32 million proposal to knock down the old Bimmet Lodge to build a unit and boarding house block.
Two key things stand out for me, which is the height of the facility, as well as the traffic management that's going to occur should that development go ahead.
Madeleine McKell, NBN News.
So it's all about encouraging the connectivity and also building a stronger local economy, builds stronger employment, greater infrastructure. It's a win for local businesses and it's a win for the community.
It's 1 versus 2 on the table and the latest chapter in the long-running rivalry between the Greens and the Hawks. Both teams head into Saturday's clash boasting near full-strength sides.
Mark Wade has been suspended for the week, so he's out. But apart from that, I think it's all hands on deck.
We're virtually at full strength. There's a bit of an injury cloud over our vice-captain Steve Lamont, but he's yet to pass the fitness test.
Both will need all the manpower they can muster for what's expected to be a fiery encounter. Merewether Carlton will be out to maintain the ladder lead, while Hamilton will be looking to avenge an 18-13 loss to the Greens earlier this season.
I'd say it's definitely better to be in our position than their position, but that was at the start of the year, I think the second or third game. Both teams have had a few people in and out since then.
They've got some real form players at the moment. Jay Strawn, Sam Clifton and obviously Dan Kubel they're really killing it. But at the same time, we've got some players that didn't play in that game as well who are playing some really good football.
And with just 3 points separating the pair on the table, there's plenty to play for.
I'm looking forward to some of the individual clashes, you know, your Damien Wells versus Sean Rudder, your Sam Clifton versus Ben Harris, Var Talaleva versus Dan Kevel. That's worth the admission price on its own.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News. At just 21, Katie Ray Ebzery is certainly juggling plenty of commitments. This weekend, she'll don her Newcastle Hunters colours to do battle with Hornsby.
They're a good group. They've got a few girls that play in the WNBL. Obviously, they're very strong, a bit unpredictable in some ways, but they're very dangerous.
And with the Hunters sitting in 6th on the ladder, she'll be hoping to leave her teammates on a winning note before she begins another basketball campaign starting in August.
Heading over to China for 2 weeks for the World University Games.
It could prove a turning point for the guard and AIS graduate. There she'll come under the watchful eye of some of Australia's top basketball brass.
It's a big boost. Our coach is the Opals assistant coach and it's sort of linking in with the Opals program.
From there she'll head to Sydney to compete for the Flames in the WNBL.
We have a really good program, great coaches and a great team together for this season. A lot of experienced athletes competing in Opals and Great Britain national teams and that type of thing. So we're really looking to head towards finals this year.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.